What's up, YouTube? Welcome back. We've got another great episode for you guys. Hope everyone's had an amazing holiday, a great Christmas. Personally, I am thankful and grateful that it's over because I am exhausted from it all. If you're new to the channel, talk about conspiracy theories, about things that are actually not conspiracies, and things that are going on with this world that people don't want to talk about. But we've got to stay within the confines of YouTube's rules. So that's what we're trying to do. Little about me, if you don't know, if you're new to the channel, personally, I grew up all over the world. I've been in 30 countries. I've personally studied a lot of this stuff. I grew up with a large library, 5,000 books, read most of them, and traveled to a lot of places looking at this stuff myself. So I formed my own perceptions, and I see more people are waking up to the same perceptions that I have, and we're all waking up. Vibrations are physically raising. This is something you can measure with the earth, scientific data. So we're talking about things that no one else is talking about, where other creators are, but people are waking up, and it's an absolutely beautiful thing. But my main thing is, don't listen to anything that I say. Don't listen to these videos. Take heed from them, let it plant the seed. Listen to what they're saying, because a lot of it's true. Most of it is. But go do your own research, because you might come to a point that I haven't come to, or someone else hasn't come to, and we can all share this information together and learn and grow from it. No one's perfect, but we're all on very different paths. I've got a very good talent of putting myself into other people's shoes, I guess, from my travels. So I'm very good at that, but in the end, that's what makes up my perceptions, and we're all just an accumulation of our own perceptions, and my perceptions just happen to be vast and very different, very just very varied in many ways, but I hope you guys do your research, and I hope you guys enjoy this. I want to introduce somebody, if you don't know who this person is. First couple of videos, Jordan Maxwell, amazing man. They have tried to unalive him many times because because of the info he's been putting out there, and because of how long he's been putting it out there. So this is a great man. He talks about stuff that nobody really gets into as deep as he does. He gets really in depth. And like I've said, they have tried to unalive him many times, but he's got stuff out there that keeps them from doing it. But his life is always under duress and threat. So let's get into it.
Very important point here that proves what we're talking about as astrology. We are now facing the next 2,150 years when the sun will officially be in the constellation of Aquarius, the water bearer. And so in the New Testament, in the book of Luke 22, the apostles are asking Jesus, now that you're going to die, where are we going to go? We are your 12 followers, but where are we going to go? And so Jesus answers them in the book of Luke 22:10, where Jesus said unto them, behold, when you enter into the city, there shall a man meet you bearing a pitcher of water. Follow him into the house where he enters in. It's the house of Aquarius. And Aquarius is the water bearer. But we know that this was talking about an astrological sign. Why? Because men never carried water ever. In the ancient world, that was something that a man would never do, is to carry water. That was a woman's job, period. So why did Jesus say, look for the man with the water pitcher? As an astrological sign. The whole of the Bible, both Old and New Testament, is a metaphor, as a symbolic story that the theologians have known for hundreds of years. But nobody is telling the public. That's why I think it's important to bring this out, that people need to know there's nothing wrong with the zodiac. The Bible, both Old and New Testament, says God created it. So if you're calling down evil upon the zodiac as a work of the devil, that's not what the scriptures say at all. And like the scripture says in the Bible, when God said to his people, do not call down evil upon something I have cleansed. When I make something, don't you call it evil. Well, this is what I'm saying that we need to keep in mind today. When you talk about astrology and the zodiac, God made that according to the scriptures. So we see the man with the water pitcher is all over the world in Christian churches. But the Christians don't know that. They don't understand what these symbols mean. The idea that most people have about the coming age of Aquarius is that it will be an age where there'll be a lot more openness to society, and people will be far easier to find information and have new ideas and new concepts. What we're talking about is trying to educate the people of this world to the fact that the zodiac dominates, as we showed in the beginning, dominates the earth and our heavens. And we need to know the ordinances of heaven. And the ordinances of heaven are basically the zodiac. It rules the heavens over the earth. Aquarius is the water bearer.
Why does Hollywood continue to pump out motion pictures depicting murder and violence and bloodshed? These conspirators, these people, make the movies showing you what the problem is. Then they make the movies to show you what the solution is. All tapes and movies influence people's minds. Why is it that drugs are brought into this country daily and we're not able to do anything about it? We're not able to do anything about the aliens pouring in across the border. It is very simple. What your government pays for, it gets. The government gets what it wants. When we understand that, then we look at universities and schools, government-financed institutions of education, and see the kind of students and the kind of education that's being turned out by these government-financed schools. Logic will tell you that if what is being turned out in those schools was not in accord with what the state and the federal government wanted, then it would change it. The bottom line is that the government is getting what they have ordered. They're getting what they have paid for. They do not want your children to be educated. They do not want you to think too much. That is why our country and our world has become so proliferated with entertainments, mass media, game shows, television shows, amusement parks, drugs, alcohol, and every kind of entertainment, so that you don't get in the way of important people by doing too much thinking. You had better wake up and understand that there are people who are guiding your life and you don't even know it.
Now, if you look, excuse me, he made that in 1969. This man has been out here doing this for decades, 50, 60 years, so, he's been out there putting this out there, trying to wake people up, and he's telling you, and he's been telling, he used to hold conferences where people would come, small groups of people, because he didn't want to make it too big, because he already knew that the alphabet groups were on to him and trying to shut him up. And so he didn't make them too large, but he would go all over doing this. And I've known about him for probably 15 years, and the stuff that I've learned from him, it's something I've never heard 81 put the way that he puts it. But he's right. You've got to stop waiting for We have got to stop waiting for our government to do something for us. Personally, I don't want the government to do anything. I don't want the government anywhere near me. The government can't even govern, and they're not even controlled by themselves. So your elected officials mean nothing. The president means nothing. They're controlled by other people. So it's up to us, and people are waking up more. That's something I talk about a lot, and it's a beautiful thing, but we've got to do more than wake up. We've got to stand up. We've got to fight. We've got to go against them, because there's so much more of us than there are of them. And they know that, but they have rules that they have to follow. That's why they show us everything before they do it. There's universal laws that they have to follow, because they know more than we do. They've been controlling our entire world for a long time. It goes back a very long time. And they are taught the universal laws that they have to follow. That's why they show you things before they do it, you know? They have to. And if we don't object, if we don't fight about it, then it's all good for them. They don't get any kind of punishment for it, you know? So we've got to fight. We've got to stand up together.
Your body is like 78% water. And when you come out of your mother, her water broke. So therefore, everything we do in commerce is based on water. And that being the case, it's based on shipping. The idea is don't rock the boat when you're at work. Don't rock the boat. We run a tight ship here. We don't want to rock the boat. And so are you with us, mate? Yeah, come aboard on the citizenship. And so now you got the dealership and sportsmanship and citizenship and all the different kind of words that end in ship. Why do you have banks? Where do you find banks? Banks are on both sides of a river. They're called river banks. What does a river bank do? It directs the flow of the currency. Money runs through your hands like water. No, money is water. That's when you put it into a bank, it's called currency. Because it's a current, it's an ebb and flow. Comes in and goes out, it comes in and goes out. It's a flow of money, and then money is water. Money is a cash flow, a liquid asset. There's a reason why everything works the way it does.
Just think about that. Just let that sink in. I'm gonna give you a couple seconds. Just let that sink in, what he's talking about. And this all comes from maritime law. Maritime law, you know, from Britain, you know, from the sea law, the laws of the sea, maritime law. That's where all of this originates from. Well, not all of it, but what he's talking about right here originates from there. But that also originates from somewhere else. You know, it goes back to ancient Rome.
We hear that God's name is Yahweh. Let me tell you something about Yahweh. I mean, I've spent 42 years looking at this stuff, and as far as I'm concerned, I'm amazed at how many people don't even begin to know what these words mean. Yahweh is not the name of God. Yahweh in Hebrew is an expressive term. It's expressing something. It's describing something. It's not a formal name of God. Yahweh in Hebrew simply means, and the best way to explain what the word means is to take a garden hose and hold the end of it, turn on the water, and you feel the pressure building up. When you release the hose, it's a release of pressure. It's a release of energy. In the Hebrew, in the ancient Hebrew, the release of dynamic energy was called Yahweh. And it was always associated with sex. It's the building up of the sexual urge, and the releasing of sex in the sex act was referred to in the ancient Phoenician Canaanite system as being one with Yahweh, the explosion of divine creativity. That's why our Jewish physicists have told us the universe came into existence by a big bang.
Yeah, so I know that might sound shocking to a lot of you, but do some research on the Canaanites, the Phoenician Canaanites.
We hear that God's name.
Sorry. Do some research on the Phoenician Canaanites. The Canaanites, you know, Sodom and Gomorrah, these things. Do real research on that. Don't research the normal books. You have to go to external sources to research this. But, you know, you can even look in the Kabbalah. You know, a lot of this stuff is in there, you know, because it's, you know, Hebrew. It's not ancient Hebrew, but it derives from ancient Hebrew, which derives from Phoenician Canaanites. You know, so that's where we get the word phonetics from. The Phoenicians, phonetics. Phonetics is what we learn on, like when I had to learn English and all these other languages. As a child, I took classes in phonetics to learn how to pronounce words in different languages. You know, phonetics, Phoenician, it all the same.
Extraordinary story, as I said, about the deception that goes on throughout the world about the real world and how it actually works. So all I'm suggesting is that you might want to take some time out of your life and start looking at the reality of the world you live in, because the world is growing more and more dangerous, more and more ignorant, and extremely violent. And unless and until the people rise up and decide to take back their sovereignty and do something about their lives and quit waiting for government to do something, because in America, we Americans love to talk about how we have the ability to elect our leaders. We're big on talking about how we can elect our leaders. But as Dick Gregory once said a long time ago, yes, we can elect our leaders, but you can't select your leaders. You don't select anyone. Your masters who own you will select who will run. You can merely vote on whoever they decide to allow you to vote on. And so when people go to the polls, for instance, people every 4 years are talking about going to the polls. How many people have ever wondered, what does the word poll mean? Why do you have to go to the poll? It's like the Gallup company, it's called the Gallup poll. Anytime some company is taking a poll, what does that mean? It doesn't mean that they are electing anybody. You take a poll to get a consensus of what the people are thinking. That's what a poll is. It's called a Gallup poll. There are many other companies that conduct polls for universities, for government. So that's what a poll is to get a consensus of what the people are thinking. How many people like this color or this product as opposed to how many like the Pepsi as opposed to Coca-Cola as opposed to root beer? And so they take a poll. And so the poll shows that that the masses all particularly like one product. That's all they wanted to know. Just which one do you like best? It doesn't mean much of anything. It's just a poll. And so every 4 years, Americans go to the poll to tell their masters who own them. And they do own you. Your body is a security on the New York Stock Exchange. You need to understand that. And so every 4 years, your masters who actually own your body want to know which one of these individuals that work for us, they work for the corporation, they work for the company, but which one of these would you feel better about having at the head of the company? Which one do you personally like? All 6 of them work for the company. They work for the government, period. But which one do you particularly like? Because this way, if you particularly like one and you vote for him, then we will make him the president of the company, and you will be happy because it was your choice. No, it wasn't your choice. You didn't have the opportunity to select your leader. You only had the opportunity to elect one of the 6 that they gave you, and all 6 work for the same company. So this is why nothing ever gets done, because people don't understand how their world really works. Extraordinary stuff. I suspect that this is a very important time in human history, and especially in the history of our country, when you don't know how your government works. You had better wake up and understand that you have left your government in the hands of other people to take care of things for you because you're too busy with your everyday life. Well, when you leave your personal business and your children and your life in the hands of someone else to take care of you, they're going to take care of you all right. Whatever decisions they make, they're going to take care of themselves, not you. Because you left yourself in their care, they will decide what you will eat. They will decide what you will wear. They will decide if you will have a job or not. Why? Well, because you left yourself in my care. I'm supposed to be in charge of you. So I will decide how much you will make. And you can bet that I'm going to make 1,000 times more than you do. Because I'm in charge. After all, you voted for me. So I'm just saying there's time for us to wake up. These are very evil days, and unless America is ready to wake up and face the facts that we have been lied to, deceived and tricked into surrendering our lives, our minds, our sovereignty of thinking. And as I said in the beginning, what we need more than anything now is a spiritual and intellectual renaissance, a revolution spiritually around the world where people wake up to the responsibility to stand before your Creator and be a normal adult human being who knows what's going on, who understands the world, and can contribute something to the good for the whole human race. But it's going to require that you educate yourself and understand how the world works. Again, my name is Jordan Maxwell, and thank you for listening.
So that was beautiful, beautifully spoken by him. You know, this was done. I believe last time I looked it up, it was in the early '90s. I want to say, and he's been saying this for decades. I don't know if he understood how right. Well, I'm sure he understood how right he was, but I don't think he understood that in the future it was going, or there was going to be a mass awakening. You know, people are waking up all around the world. That's why you see people talking about, you know, frequencies and vibrations and your pineal gland and our government and the way we do things and your education. You know, your education is BS. You have to re-educate yourself about these things. And that's why you can only take it a spoonful at a time, because when you educate yourself into the true education of what's going on with reality, meaning our world and everything around us, then it flips your whole paradigm upside down, and you know you'll lose it. A lot of people just don't know what to think, because you know every system that they have in place in their mind that they thought they understood is false. And so, but it truly is, and it's been that way for so long. You know, look at the Smithsonian. You know, they're going through lawsuits right now, multiple lawsuits. One because at every dig site around the world where they found giants, I'm not talking about some of these 7 and 8 foot people. I'm talking about 32-foot tall humans, well, species of people, but they were human. You know, when they found these, they took over, and then they brought the bones back to the Smithsonian. And then when people wanted to see them, they claim, you know, first they claimed that they were locked in an area that was full of asbestos, so nobody can go down there. And then people started to Freedom of Information Act came out, and people started to request more information on this. And you know, they would come back with things like, oh, we lost them, or they've decayed, and all of this stuff. That's one lawsuit. The other lawsuit is about Africa, you know, about the history of Africans and how, you know, they have found uh, gold tipped swords and mummies, you know, in the Grand Canyon, coming from North Africa and Egypt. You know, these have been tested. You know, the gold has been tested, and sure enough, it came from Africa. And I don't know if you guys know this. I can't remember the guy's name, but it was a king, and I'll find out and post it or tell you. But there was a king in Africa. It's the richest country in the world. You know, millennia ago, multiple millennia ago. Everything was in gold before Egypt. Everything was in gold. Gold everywhere. People would come from, they would sail from Europe, and they would just see all of this majesty and gold everywhere. You know, statues, buildings, people, gold everywhere. And that king was so gracious that he would gift his guests, you know, trunks full, like treasure trunks full of gold as a gift, because it was so plentiful. And it's still that way. That's why almost every big country, you know, China, Russia, Germany, the US, they all have people in Africa right now tearing the country apart, digging for gold. And they've got, local Africans that are just tearing down their own country, this beautiful country, all of this nature, tearing it down. And then the locals get little pieces of gold, and they have these little shops, and then they're sitting there smelting gold. And in order to extract the gold, they're using mercury, and very few of them have the actual extraction systems, the air extraction systems to extract the mercury out of the air. So a lot of them are sitting there doing that, just haphazardly. I don't know if you know what mercury poisoning is, but that's where we get the term Mad Hatter, the Mad Hatter from Alice in Wonderland. They say you're mad as a hatter. It's from mercury. It's from mercury poisoning, because the people that used to make hats used mercury and they were breathing that in, and it tears your brain up and makes you go absolutely crazy and kills you. Mad as a hatter. So yeah, there's still plenty of gold in Africa. Countries are there, and so the Smithsonian has multiple lawsuits about covering up histories of those people, covering up history of the indigenous people of this country, which are not, Native Americans. Those are not the indigenous people. There's indigenous people, but they came from Africa a long time ago. But even before there was Africans here, well, no, it was after Africans were here. Then there were multiple people here that had giant people here that were over 20 feet tall, living with normal people that were 5 and 6 feet tall. I said this in one of my videos. There was I can't recall his name, I'll have to find it, but there was this artist who came to, America before it was ever America, and he was a talented artist, and he would draw everything. So he had a journal where he would draw in color all of these things. And I looked at his drawings, and he's drawing houses and people. And I remember one house had a house, and then it had two women, and the top of the house came to their waist, and then there was a man that didn't even come up to their waist, all in the same photo. They're drawing, but the cultures, the clothing, their skin color was accurate. Everything that they drew, and they weren't all the same skin color. It was multiple races, multiple species. Well, they were all human, but different types. But it was beautiful, and he was traveling through, no issue at that time, so everything he's talking about, we've got to wake up, and we've got to understand this stuff. We've got to understand reality and what's been taken from us, what's been hidden from us, what reality is, because we've been so indoctrinated, that most people don't even know what's going on. Look at millennials these days. Not all millennials, but I'm sure you've seen the videos on YouTube where a guy goes out and asks a millennial, basic questions that, your normal US education system, you should know, like third grade math, third grade history, and they have no idea, and they're in their 20s, and they have zero idea of any of that, but they can tell you, who the biggest NBA star is, or, which football team wins the Super Bowl, every year, or this and that, but they have no idea. They can't tell you anything about home owning policies, insurance, anything, but they can tell you all of these things that Hollywood puts out, and that's how they want it. They want you dumbed down. That way you depend on them for everything, and they can sell you anything because you don't know any better and think you need it. I'm gonna stop ranting. Sorry.
They have lied to us. They said dairy is good for the bones and calcium, but milk actually strips the bone of calcium. Vitamin D is the real bone enhancer. But they tell you to not look at the sun because it will make you go blind. But sun glazing scientifically actually stimulates the pineal gland and opens up the third eye, which will teach you anything and set you free. But they lied about us, like they always do, because this way they couldn't enslave us. Not only that, but they also lied about our hair, which is not just hair. It's an extension of our central nervous system, branching out to the outside, used to scan the outside environment and using melanin neurotransmitters to help your inside understand the outside. This also explains the gut instinct. When you have this unexplained bad gut feeling, the hair on your skin starts standing up. Have you ever noticed this? Because it feels the outside threat. Everything they told us about health is a lie. Follow, like, and share so others can heal.
By the 11th century, archives were being kept in at least 3 different locations: St. Peter's Basilica in Vatican City, as well as the Lateran and the Palatine Palace nearby in Rome. Of course, the Middle Ages were a time of constant conflict across Europe, and on more than one occasion, the locations housing these Vatican records were sacked, resulting in the loss of large portions of the archives. In 1404, the Vatican itself was sacked, and Pope Innocent VII was forced to flee the city, while official Vatican documents from more than 1,000 years of history.
I just want to pause here. I know you heard her say Pope Innocent II. When a pope, when a pope becomes the pope, you know, who joins the papacy, he's allowed to choose his name. So the name that everyone sees isn't ever his actual name. Usually.
Were thrown into the streets like trash. Recognizing that what was left was of paramount importance to the Church, not to mention human history, the Vatican began to construct plans to keep all of their records in one secure central location. Finally, in 1612, Pope Paul V ordered that all church records be collected and stored in the safest place possible, directly under the Vatican. This became officially known as the Archivum Secretum Apostolicum Vaticanum, the Vatican Secret Archive, and beneath Vatican City it has laid ever since. For many centuries, the machinations of the Catholic Church have shaped the culture and politics of the world. What this means is that within the Vatican Secret Archive are the original records of some of history's foundational moments, in effect not just the story of the Church, but of humanity itself. For example, the archives hold the official copy of the papal decree splitting the New World in 1493, after it was supposedly discovered by Christopher Columbus. And by the way, we have an entire video showing much evidence that ancient African civilizations discovered America way before Columbus or the Scandinavians. You can click the top right corner to watch it. The Inter Caetera, as it was titled, gave Spain control of everything 100 leagues away from the Azores and Cape Verde, and Portugal the rest. The reason why today Brazil speaks Portuguese, while the rest of South America speaks Spanish. There is the original copy of the infamous Decet Romanum Pontificum, the document which excommunicated Martin Luther in 1521.
Sorry to pause again, but my last video, I talked about how Spain was the main port for slavery. You know, countries all over the world would pull up to Spain and deliver their slaves for money. You know, so Spain was the main port, and this is another point about them.
After Luther published his 95 Theses, a work critical of the Catholic Church, the Vatican gave him 60 days to recant his condemnation. Luther publicly burned his copy of the warning and was subsequently kicked out of the Church, sparking the Protestant Reformation. Similarly, the archives house the letter sent to the Pope in 1530 by English noblemen, clergy, and even the Archbishop of Canterbury, asking that King Henry VIII be allowed to divorce his wife, Catherine of Aragon, so that he might marry Anne Boleyn. Written on an enormous 3-foot-wide parchment, the letter promised extreme measures if the Pope did not heed their request. Of course, the Pope rejected the request, triggering a break with the Church of England and the English Reformation. Elsewhere, there are minutes from the 1633 trial in which Galileo was tried as a heretic for arguing that the earth revolves around the sun and not the other way around, an incredible moment in the history of religion versus science. Similarly, the minutes from the trial against the Knights Templar were discovered amongst the archives in 2001, after having been lost for centuries due to an archival mistake. In the early 14th century, and at the peak of their prodigious power, the Knights Templar had been accused of heresy and blasphemous behavior during the Crusades. Many were severely punished, even burned alive. However, as the discovered documents showed, the Pope actually absolved the group of blasphemy in 1308, totally changing the historical memory of the group and their relationship with the brutality of the Catholic Church. In 1972, a bizarre headline appeared in an Italian magazine called La Domenica del Corriere. It read, "A machine that photographs the past has finally been invented." The article gave the account of a Catholic priest by the name of Father Pellegrino Ernetti, who asserted that hidden deep within the Vatican's secret archives was a device which allowed its user to see and hear events from the past. Not a time machine which sent a person back in time, but rather a sort of time viewer which brought the past into the present. A device which could tune into specific events of the past and display them on a screen like some sort of time-traveling television. The device was called the chronovisor, and with it, Ernetti asserted, he had been able to see the last days of the life of Jesus and other biblical moments, like the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah and the creation of the Ten Commandments. Most astonishingly, the article included a photograph of the face of Jesus at the moment of crucifixion, which Ernetti had purportedly taken using the device, proof, it seemed, of the chronovisor's existence and function. Contrary to popular belief, African American history did not start with slavery in the New World. An overwhelming body of new evidence is emerging, which proves that Africans had frequently sailed across the Atlantic to the Americas thousands of years before Columbus, and indeed before the Vikings. The great African civilization of Egypt, together with many North and West African people, traveled to the Americas and even contributed immensely to the early American culture by their architecture, art, political systems, and religious practices, as well as mathematics, writing, and a sophisticated calendar. The most substantial evidence of African presence in America comes from the pen of Christopher Columbus himself. Columbus noted in his journal that Native Americans had confirmed that black-skinned people had come from the southeast in boats, trading in gold-tipped spears. Columbus also saw the metal goods from West Africa, and he even obtained them from the Native Americans. Chemical analyses of gold tips found by Columbus on spears in the Americas showed that the gold most certainly came from West Africa. In 1992, a German researcher who was performing tests on mummies found traces of hashish, tobacco, and cocaine in the hair, skin, and bones of the ancient Egyptian mummies. Tobacco and coca were plants that only grew in the Americas at the time of mummification. So just how did these exotic opiates arrive in ancient Egypt before the discovery of the New World? This crucial piece of evidence proves that ancient civilizations were not only interconnected in the distant past, but also elaborate trade routes were established thousands of years ago. Perhaps the most famous discovery of all is the ancient Egyptian colony found in the Grand Canyon. This extraordinary discovery made the front page of the Arizona Gazette in 1909. Two archaeologists encountered a series of bizarre caves in the Marble Canyon region of the Grand Canyon. The caves were full of Egyptian artifacts, including statues, copper weapons, and even granaries full of seeds. The cave system was so big it resembled a subterranean city, which was big enough to accommodate 50,000 people. Many mummified bodies of Egyptian origin were also found. The two archaeologists who made the discovery made the mistake of involving the Smithsonian. As we mentioned in our video about the discoveries of giant skeletons and how they were all covered up by the Smithsonian, the case with the Egyptian colony in the Grand Canyon was no different. Allegedly, the Smithsonian took full control of the excavation and took possession of all of the artifacts and mummies. Later, when questions about this discovery were forwarded to the Smithsonian, they simply denied that any of this had ever happened. They said they had no records of the archaeologists who found the colony, nor of the discovery itself. The story was left forgotten, and the historical status quo that ancient civilizations weren't advanced enough to travel to the Americas still remains. If ancient Egyptians could organize large-scale transoceanic voyages, wouldn't we find more evidence of their travels? Well, we have. It's just that mainstream scholars firmly oppose the discoveries while tagging them as elaborate hoaxes. An example of this is the intriguing set of Egyptian hieroglyphs located in Australia. Referred to as the Gosford glyphs, the intricate set of symbols is believed to have been carved some 5,000 years ago by ancient Egyptians who visited Australia. They were written in the archaic style of the early dynasties, a style that has been studied very little and is untranslatable by most Egyptologists. However, Egyptologist Mohammed Ibrahim and Kemet School co-director Youssef Abdel Hakim Aouyan, who have studied ancient Egyptian hieroglyphs their entire lives, were able to decipher the enigma. They worked with a group of people to translate the mysterious engravings, and the result was incredible. Not only are the mysterious ancient Egyptian hieroglyphs in Australia authentic, but the scribes accurately used several ancient symbols and grammatical variations which, crucially, were not even documented in Egyptian hieroglyphic texts until 2012, proving the glyphs are not a hoax, as people in the 1900s couldn't have possibly used this style of writing.
We are coming up on this giant footprint, which is in the rock, which is amazing. If you take a look at this, here you can clearly see the footprint. I am very excited to share this footage with you today. I have heard about this giant footprint for a long time. I have never had the opportunity to come and look at it for myself, but I'm finally here today. And this footprint is located in just not far away from a little town called Amsterdam, close to the border of Swaziland in South Africa. And it is a giant footprint, also known as footprint of God by some people. And archaeologists estimate this to be between 2 and 3 billion years in age. As you can see, it's an enormous footprint. I'm 5'8", so I would say the footprint is almost practically my size. And you can clearly see the big toe and the 4 other toes here imprinted on it. It's like it was in mud or something, and as the person pulled up, it caused this residue of mud, which over time, of course, fossilizes as granite rock. And as the plates of the earth shifted, it pushed it up here, which now today we have this wonderful specimen. This is where the footprint is located. It's literally in the middle of nowhere. So all those debunkers who say it's a hoax or it's fake, I can't see why somebody would come all the way in the middle of nowhere here to come and build or carve out a footprint. If you go and do some of your own research, you'll find that across the planet there are a lot of different giant footprints, and there's a lot of speculations about giants that lived centuries and centuries ago. Even in biblical times, you'll have reference to giants. There's lots of images of figures that are giant in size throughout history. Statues, one comes to mind of a statue that is back in the Syrian Empire, where one of the gods hold a lion under its arm, and the lion is like the size of a cat compared to his body. So I know it sounds fantastical and bizarre and impossible, but why would it be impossible? Why is it not possible that beings much larger than us existed? I mean, today we have some beings that are 7'8" in height, if not taller. So even though our average height is, much shorter than that as a human race, why not a large race of giants that existed in the past? I think it's fascinating. I think if you ever have the opportunity to to come and check it out for yourself. It's well worth the trip. And do some research on the internet and see all the things that come up. It's amazing what you find. There's a lot of people that say this is nonsense. I, on the other hand, don't think it's so far-fetched at all. So it all depends on what you believe. I know it just seems like a rock, but it's incredible if you really think about it. It's a footprint that belonged to somebody.
So there you go, right there. Not a hoax. Do your own research, just like she said.
Coming up.
Sorry. I've got a lot of photos of a lot of this stuff from a long time ago, real photos. I've thought about doing a video showing these photos and discussing them, especially the ones that are only, less than 200 years old, showing people that were almost 20 feet tall, showing electric cars in the 1860s, plugging in a barn, row of cars, one on each side of the barn for electricity, the Chicago Fair of 1890 and these things. So if you want to see a video like that, let me know in the comments and I'll make it happen. I just haven't done it because, it's photos versus video. But I think it would be really good for people to see that. And because these are all real photos, they're not, none of these are fake or Photoshop, and it's public information. I've just done my research and I save this stuff because I like to look at it to remind myself. And if I want to show other people that come over, hey, this is real. I can show you a ton of evidence about it. It's what I like to do. So let me know in the comments if that's something that you guys are interested in. If it is, I'll make it happen. So just let me know.
How can someone say that it doesn't exist? That's extreme denial to the point of insanity.
3 years ago, I set out across America to investigate a story about a mysterious substance called ormus. A story so strange that I had to meet the people behind it.
These are a group of previously unknown minerals.
Everyone was experiencing a metaphysical type of effect with it.
You can take a substance that will cause reality to change.
My blood oxygen level shows the blood oxygen level of a teenage athlete.
But getting a grasp of the facts was proving more difficult than I ever imagined.
It's a very slippery subject.
Okay, tell him you need to stop. You need to stop.
Let's talk out of the car.
It seems to me he feels he has the secret to something.
A secret as old as the Bible.
Can you make gold?
Can I make gold?
Would you consider yourself an alchemist?
Because you're making gold, aren't you?
Yes. People because of this. People have because of this.
This is the story of my search. To find out if ormus really does exist. And if it's possible to literally make gold.
What is going on here?
Anybody that tries it, in my opinion, is an idiot.
So that was the basis for alchemy. I don't know if a lot of you know what alchemy is, but an alchemist is a person that can transmute other minerals to create gold. So, taking things that are not gold and turning it into gold. That's what alchemy was based on. But it was also formed the basis for chemical, alchemy, chemistry, alchemical chemistry. Chemist, so it was the basis for that.
Your DNA is slowly falling apart. Each time a cell divides, it loses a little more of its telomere, the tiny cap at the end of its DNA strand. Once its telomeres are gone, the cell dies, or worse, it mutates and becomes cancer. We call this aging. and there's no way to stop it. But just this year, researchers have found a way to drastically slow it down. Human trials found that nicotinamide mononucleotide doubles the length of telomeres in just 90 days, resulting in all-day energy, increased insulin sensitivity, enhanced power in the gym, and resilience to diseases and pollutants. Now you can try this powerful molecule for less than $10 with Immortal. Your DNA.
What do you guys think of that? Sorry about the sound. What do you guys think of that, though? I've made videos on how to lengthen your telomeres by 20%, you know, with meditation and other things. This is the first I've heard of this. You know, it might be worth trying. You know, there's you know, the worst that can happen is it doesn't work, or it causes something bad to happen, but, you know, it would be worth checking out, I think.
Your brain is copper and carbon. And Dr. Sebi said that. Your brain is copper and carbon. So you need copper for your brain to function and for your whole body to function. And Morley Robbins was talking about how we only need 1 milligram of iron in our body per day. The rest is supposed to be coming from copper. So think about this imbalance that we're having. We have no copper over here, and then we have all this iron and all this plastic over here. Well, this is going to gunk us all up, just like those pipes. It's going to block up those pipes, which what's it's going to do to the body? It's going to block up the pipes of the body, or the electrical pathways of the body, or the meridian lines that run up and down the entire body. So if you think about it, if you take the copper away, then now you're overloaded on iron. And iron doesn't conduct too well. But if we're conductive crystals, if you take out all the copper, you have no more conductivity. Then you start having people having inflammation, their lymphatic system's all messed up, you know, they can't think, their stomach's all messed up. You start seeing all these things and going, kind of makes sense, because nothing is flowing. There's no energy that's flowing. It's all blocked up. How do you get copper into your body? You can look into liver. Liver is one of the highest sources of copper. You can also look into cashews with the skin. Another great source of copper. Or you could just drink from a copper cup too. You know, I mean, there's different ways.
I have one of these copper cups, and what he's saying is true. And if you listen to Dr. Sebi, you know, he talked about mucus was the only disease in the world, and mucus was the cause of another disease that everybody suffers from, which is inflammation. Mucus causes all of the other diseases in the world, but inflammation is also a major killer, and it can come from things as maybe not so simple as stress, you know, depending on how you handle your stress. You know, personally, I hold mine in my back, so I get, you know, massages, and, you know, go to a chiropractor from time to time because my back tenses up. I rarely get stressed because I know how to let things go, but it takes, you know, I go maybe a couple of times a year, maybe 3 times a year. Stress doesn't build up on me very well because I'm easy to let things go. I know how to move past things very easily. So, but yeah, it's a serious thing.
Guess what hydrogen sounds like? It's a key of E, and it's a color yellow. That's what proper physics gets you to. Oxygen is a chartreuse, and it's the key of F over F sharp. Now they used to, like I said, information used to be thought about as just electrical information passing on. But I got a question for you. Have you ever been at a party with some of your friends you ain't seen in 10 years, but y'all was like 14, you hung out and there's a song that came on and you was like, and everybody got up and was live at that moment. Now say 10 years later you got a friend with you, he's a good guy, but he wasn't there when me and my boys formed this. So when that song comes on, our DNA tightens. There's a particular song, a scale in the genomes for each and every one of us. Now when that song is played, when your particular prime resonant frequency is played, guess what happens? Your DNA celebrates and tightens. Everything else gets pushed out. Harmonic wave resequencing. The carbon is also the key of E and yellow. The nitrogen is G. And all these play a song. So say that the F over F sharps of the oxygen, the green, is only hitting at an F. Why? Because there's another frequency coming in from a generator over there. That's changing and causing it to change. The F hits the carbon, so instead of hitting as an F sharp, it hits as an F, so when it hits the carbon at an E, it doesn't hit it quite right, so the domino don't file right. So the next domino hits wrong. And so now we have malformation happening within our DNA because the frequencies are being pushed off. But when we hear our tone, we tighten back up. So yeah, I'm in the process of building the harmonic wave resequencer with another doctor who has been able to successfully cure AIDS and cancer. And it's well underway. But I wanted you guys to understand how that works. It's so simple. You do not need to tear the human body apart when all you can do is use frequency to bring it back to its normal space.
I said those exact words, well, not exact, but in one of my other videos or a couple of my videos, I said you do not need to rip the human body.
Guess what hydrogen sounds like?
Sorry, to rip the human body apart to heal it, because our entire reality is made up of sound, vibration, and frequencies. That's what our reality is made up of, you know, and there's just so much more to it, and it's beautiful, but it's horrible the way that, you know, that they chose the people that are in charge of this world have chosen to go about things versus the way our ancestors, our ancient ancestors, used to do things.
Look at this and tell me if you recognize anything there.
Yes, I do. It resembles a panel that I saw at the structure in Antarctica. That was a panel that had the star map on it.
And the star map, do you know?
From what they could estimate, it was not only our universe, but 3 universes combined in one large star map. The focal point was what our Hubble Space Telescope has photographed and recorded at that time. Then they correlated what the Hubble Space Telescope had taken photographs of that was not in our universe, but actually a different universe outside, further out than what we think our universe is.
I know that what you just said to me was that we were using the Hubble to photograph in another universe outside of this universe.
Yes, ma'am.
And then another universe.
Yes, ma'am. The way it was described to me, they were taking mathematical equations, formulas, from different points of our universe and pinpointing it to photographs or recordings that was made by our Hubble Space Telescope, which at that time was the best technological device that we had at that time.
Was this generated by extraterrestrial beings?
Yes, ma'am. This is where you start from, our Milky Way. And each point tells you this is where it's at. In all 3 star maps that I know of.
Well, could the ET star map relate to the portal jumps?
That's what I'm thinking.
Portal jumps between magnetic field anomalies on Earth, multiple universes, multiple dimensions, multiple timelines, and matter worlds. Is that what this black sun pattern on the thick black basalt doors in Antarctica means? Did the humanoid intelligence that built these 6 huge structures covering 62 acres each in Antarctica deliberately mark their huge self-activating doors with the 12-arm symbol and star map because the information was their signature and their key to a galactic portal network?
What I'm holding in my hands is an electrodeless lamp.
In it, I have a low atmosphere gas, somewhat similar to the atmosphere above the Earth. I'm now going to put this in the microwave oven, which will irradiate it with about 1 watt per square centimeter.
You know, you put 1 watt out and you've got the field necessary to break down the air, or whatever happens.
And you see all of the motion of the plasma. That's typical of what will happen at high altitude, where the ionosphere gets irradiated with these big beams.
That was 1 watt per centimeter. HAARP focuses 3.6 million watts and squeezes it into a billion-watt or gigawatt beam.
We're squeezing the megawatts into a narrow beam. Then in a very tiny area, you can create what's it called, an effective gigawatt.
Is HAARP safe? Yes, HAARP is safe.
The Earth is a web of interconnections. How do we know what we're doing when we blast the upper atmosphere with a huge amount of energy?
So I hope you guys enjoyed that. I'm gonna leave you with that to marinate on, think about it. Look up HAARP, H-A-A-R-P. That's who has been controlling our weather for, you know, decades now. They've got some of the largest farms out there doing things, and they're secure government facilities, even though they're not technically government. But they act like it. So, you know, they're the ones that are doing a lot of the stuff, you know, heating up our air, putting lithium in our air, you know, dispersing, you know, all this stuff with planes in our atmosphere. Very, very evil things. So, but yeah, do your research on that and on everything that was here, because you know, none of this is a conspiracy, and people are waking up to that fact that, you know, you can't just, there's so many people that are waking up now that understand the truth, and we're going to these places and we're looking at these things for ourselves. And, you know, a lot of us are experts in certain fields, and when we come together, you know, our expertise and our own experiences within our expertise, when we research these things, we come together and we can build this entire new way of looking at things, a new truth. Well, the real truth of what is out there, what we are, what they are, what everything is, and how it should work, and the better ways to do things. Just like talking about, you know, a harmonic resequencer, you know, and just like Wilhelm Reich, you know, the guy who built the orgone chamber, you know, that could heal all of those things. Putting you into a box that had no electricity, was made out of wool, cotton, and wood, you know, just the way he did it. That Stanford, you know, they locked him up and imprisoned him, and he unalived in prison. And Stanford, you know, a few years ago, actually rebuilt. They built his same orgone chamber and realized that he was absolutely right. But when he came over here from Germany, because of the way that you know, that the elite bankers you know, set things up, you know, they made him, because of big pharma and big medicine, they made him seem like a quack or a fanatic, and they wanted him out of the way, and they were going to get him out of the way. And they ended up imprisoning this man who did all of this for free, healed people for free, just like the same guy in Texas that's done the same thing. He just says, you've got to come to me and I'll do it, because all of his stuff is in Texas. You can't just pick up all of that and come to you. So as long as you could come to him, he would heal you for free. And it's none of the crap that they use today. It's all natural stuff, and he's done it. And in his court cases, you know, there were tons of people there as character witnesses, you know, pleading, you know, to set him free because of how he's helped them and how he's done it for free. And this is the kind of stuff that we need, you know. I actually plan on building that same exact thing, but I'm going to build a small one like Wilhelm Reich did first and test it on fruit, you know. But I'm definitely going to do that. I've started collecting stuff and, you know, researching it already. But yeah, do your research, you know, look this stuff up. It's very important, and it's important that we understand it. And the more that, you know, right now there's 15% of us that are awake that are carrying, you know, the rest of the world. But more of us are waking up every single day. And the more of us that wake up, the more people we have to go against, you know, all of the wrongs, all of the people that are wronging us, that are stealing from our reality, stealing from our lives, you know, causing our lives to be what they're not supposed to be, causing our existence to be false. Because there's so much more to this world, so much more beauty, but they want to bring nothing but, you know, unaliving and detriment to this world and to us, and just greed is all they want. So I'm going to stop ranting now. I hope you guys enjoyed that. Like I said, let me know about the pictures, and see you on the next one.